Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. In today's video, it's going to be my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 11 deadline. With the international break looming and a 2-week break after that, this is the final one, thankfully for quite some time, and then we're full steam ahead on the fantasy aspect of things. Now, thank you very much for the support on the previous episode. It's greatly appreciated. If you could go ahead down below and hit the subscribe button, we're on the road to 1,500 subscribers. And hit the bell notification down there so you don't miss an upload in the future. Now, without further ado, let's crack on with the video. With all my final thoughts videos, we of course cover the injury news, the big injury news that is, that's currently plaguing our teams. Now, for time of reference, this is being recorded on Friday morning, just after a couple of the press conferences, but we're yet to still get some of the other ones. Fortunately, I can't wait for them, and this is the only information that we've got to hand so far. Now, first up, my club, Arsenal. Lots of injury news, and unfortunately, not a lot of it great for our fantasy assets. Gyökeres looks like he's going to be out. Of course, Arteta did what Arteta normally does. He kind of danced around the question. He didn't really answer it full on. But we know they're trying to get him back for the Tottenham Hotspur game after the international break. They're going to try and get through this Sunderland one with the mass amount of injuries that they've currently got. You're looking at Gyökeres out injured, Havertz still out injured. Gabriel Jesus actually has come back from his long-term ACL injury. He's in training for the first time this week. Whether or not he'll be thrown into the squad straight away or not, I'm not too sure. I think they might let him get a bit more minutes under his belt first on behind-the-scenes games. But then you've got players like Martinelli, who's out injured, Odegaard, who's still out injured, and Noni Madueke, who is also still out injured. You could almost field an entire new front line through the players that Arsenal have got out through injury crisis. I think personally it's going to be Moreno up front, Trossard on the left, and Saka on the right. We've not got too many options. Max Dowman came on in the week in that right wing position. Saka ended up on the left wing position. And I think that was more of a minutes management thing. So for Arsenal, looks like a lot of key assets are out. Moving on to Newcastle, still some injury news there as well. Johan Vissa yet to play a minute this season for Newcastle so far. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case either this week going into Game Week 11. It's getting closer and closer for those of you who do own Voltemada up front. Of course, he didn't do too well points-wise this week, but it does look like, as long as his fitness holds up, he will be starting in Game Week 11 with Vissa still out injured, especially with the young lad up front for Newcastle. I think it's Osalu, something like that. He picked up an injury in the week and he's out for several weeks with an ankle-related knock. So Voltemada probably will start that one. And of course, Anthony Gordon has been having a niggling hip injury for quite some time now. He was resting in the Champions League in the week and it backfired. It looks like he might have aggravated it slightly, and he is a major doubt for Game Week 11. Personally, we'll get to my team towards the back end of the video and my transfer thoughts ahead of the deadline. But it would be a hell of a risk to leave Anthony Gordon in your team, in my opinion, of course. Moving on to Liverpool, it doesn't look like they're going to be getting too many players back into the squad. Frimpong's still out for several weeks at least with his hamstring-related injury. Similar story with Alisson in goal for you Mamardashvili owners. Looks like you're going to get at least one more fixture out of him. But slightly better news, Alexander Isak could potentially be in the squad for their trip to the Etihad this weekend. I don't think he'll start. I think it'll be Ekitike, Gakpo, and probably Salah. But of course, Wirtz might play on the left. They've still got options all around. And finally, a Crystal Palace player. Of course, we've not yet had the Crystal Palace press conference at the time of making this video. But after the game last night, where they picked up a 3-1 victory against AZ Alkmaar, Oliver Glasner came out with some pretty worrying news with regards to Ismaila Sarr. Of course, he did very well points-wise, thankfully for my team. And many of you did bring him in for the price rise, of course. But, and this is a quote from him, he's picked up a very, very small tightness in his hamstring prior to last night's game, which is why he was substituted slightly earlier than many of us would have thought. There was lots of space in behind that AZ defence, especially if you watch the game. Sarr's second goal, a through ball from Mateta, it looked like the space was there to capitalise on. Just after the hour mark, he was brought off, and I was slightly curious. Now we have more reason why that was the case. I think it might be one of them ones where he will probably play. I'm 65% sure he will start this game, but there's always that element of doubt. And If you are a new buyer for Saar, it's going to put you off. It's going to put doubt in your mind. I think if you own him, keep him. If you don't own him, it might not be the best opportunity to dive on him and get those points. Because if he doesn't play, especially in a single game week where you're relying upon him playing one set of fixtures, well, one fixture in the fixture list, I should say, compared to a double where you might be able to get 20, 30 in the first game and a potential start in the second one. I think minutes in a single game week are the most important aspect. Get your players out on the pitch. So for Saar, it's not ideal. Perhaps by the time you've seen this video, Glasner might have clarified certain things and maybe brushed it under the carpet. But as things stand, he is a slight doubt into game week 11. Next up, we've got a few selected biggest price rises going into the game week 11 deadline. All the players on this list consist of players that are going up either 0.2 or 0.3 in price. Of course, these are only predictions on not only fpl.co.uk, not a sponsored segment at all, just a fantastic website for all things analytics, fantasy football games based. Now, this list comprises of some players I think can score points and some players that I think are good long-term holds. Now, first up, you've got Mikel Moreno of Arsenal. Of course, he did appear in my big differential video earlier this week. If you did miss out, go check it out. It's got lots of informative information in there with regards to good assets under 10% owned. But for Mikel Moreno, I think it's 0.3 he's scheduled to go up. He's going to play up front in game week 11, in my opinion. He'll probably play up front in game week 12 unless they want to rush Gyökeres back. And I think that might be the case. But for Mikel Moreno, he's a clinical finisher. Yes, he is a midfielder by trade, but whenever he's been put up front in those attacking positions, he's scored lots of points. Now, I know Sunderland away isn't the most ideal fixture. They've been very good this season. But if you looked at that before the start of the campaign, you would have said that might be a fixture to target, especially in a single game week. I watched Sunderland at home to Everton on Monday Night Football that's just gone by. For the first 25, 30 minutes, they was really, really poor. After that, they grew into the game and there was quite a good team to watch, actually. So maybe not the easiest of fixtures, but definite potential there with Moreno. Very similar with Leandro Trossard, scheduled to go up 0.2 or 0.3 in price. He will play on that left-hand side. Even with certain injuries, he has been the flavour of choice over there on the left wing. I think that's got a lot to do with his combinations with Calafiori at left back. Normally when it's Skelly or Hincapié at left back, we have a different left winger playing, but currently Trossard is the flavour of the week. Malo Gusto and Esteval of Chelsea. Gusto seems to be filling in at that right back role a lot more than I thought he would. Reece James being pushed into midfield, and that might be the case as well this weekend. But with them playing slightly, quote, easier opposition in Wolves, it might be one of those situations where Reece James plays at right back. The manager's come out and said he is ready to play 3 games in a 7-day stretch. So this might be the first time in a while that we see that from him. For Malo Gusto, slightly cheaper price, but going up 0.2 and 0.3. Similar with Esteval. Pedro Neto missed out completely in the week. Will he be back for game week 11? If not, that opens up the possibility for Esteval to start on the right wing. And against a Wolves team where he's already shown his quality in the Carabao Cup not too long ago, that offers lots of routes to points. Iliman Ndiaye of Everton, scheduled to go 0.3 in value, was also another player in my big differentials video a couple of days ago. With the next 3 game weeks in game week 11, 12 and 13, these players who aren't in Europe, you might only be missing out on 1 game over that 3 game week stretch. Of course, those players who are scheduled to double in game week 12 in the European competitions aren't necessarily guaranteed their games, so you might end up playing the same amount of fixtures. So for him, Everton fixtures are okay. They're not too great, but he offers good routes to points as well. Igor Jesus, Nottingham Forest, probably will start up front for them. No Chris Wood still. He didn't get too many points last night in the Europa League, but he's shown over the past few game weeks that he has the ability to chip in where needed with goals and assists and on the attacking front. Connor Bradley, the man who seems to go up 0.3 in price just for turning up and putting his boots on every week, according to the Dream Team Towers. But this week he will probably go up 0.3 in value, and this is one of the few weeks he's actually earned it. Back-to-back clean sheets against who is it now? I forgot in the Premier League. I know they got it in against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and I think it was Villa in the Premier League, thinking about it now. He will start in game week 11, but it is potentially the trickiest single game week fixture that you could have from a defensive aspect point of things, with Haaland up front for City. Will they keep a clean sheet in game week 11? I very much doubt it. But you'd get him in for that price rise, and you'd get him in for at least game week 12 and 13 because of Frimpong's injury. And that might be the way forward. It might be you have to lose a few points in game week 11 to gain the prize and gain some points going forward. So Connor Bradley, a great option. Phil Foden and Nico O'Reilly from Manchester City. Of course, Foden went absolutely massive this week with his points. 2 goals in the Champions League, picking up bonus points left, right, and centre. It looks like we have finally hit that point of the season where Phil Foden's hot streak is among us. And Nico O'Reilly, spoken about him many times on the channel. If he was categorised as a defender, I think his ownership would be well over 30%. He's missed out on a few game weeks in game week 10 and prior, but back into the squad for prior to game week 10, that was. In game week 10, he was back in the squad, back scoring points, and you can't look past him. And finally, for the price rises, we've got Paulinia of Tottenham Hotspur, one of the many players from Tottenham that are hurting me points-wise, Van der Ven being the other one. He started on the bench in the Champions League, came on for a cameo appearance, got one of the easiest assists in the world. I think it was him who assisted the Van der Ven goal where he ran the length of the pitch. Got a goal for himself and scored quite well despite only playing 30 or so minutes in that Champions League game. He's offering good routes to points through tackles mainly. If you played Sky Fantasy back in the day, you'll know he was very good on that one. So Paulinia, as with all players on this list, either rising 0.2 or 0.3 in value. That's what they're projected anyways. And to round off my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 11 deadline, I thought I'd recap how I did in Game Week 10 and my transfer plans ahead of Game Week 11. Game Week 10 went really, really well. 188 points overall, so just shy of the big 200 mark, something I've never done in Sun Dream Team, so I was willing it into existence, just fell a little bit short. Erling Haaland with the captaincy, a big 30-pointer for him, doubled to 60 points. For those of you who did go elsewhere with the captaincy, you can consider yourself very hard done by. Lots of good returns elsewhere, but once again, Haaland proven to be the best captaincy this week. Saka with a 17-pointer, could have been more. Had 2 one-on-ones in the Premier League fixture. Didn't put them away and scored the penalty in the Champions League in the week, so good return for him. Nico Williams, 13-pointer for him. Was willing his extra 2 bonus points into existence. Just finished shy, finished on 3 bonus points overall. 13 points for the week for him. So my transfers in this week did really well because he was brought in with Ismaila Sarr of Crystal Palace. 20 points for Sarr. 2 goals in the Conference League game last night against AZ. Hit the post in that game. Had a penalty won. Mateta missed the penalty and hit the post in the Premier League as well at the weekend. So that 20 points could have easily been 30 plus for him. Other players to note, Gabriel, just ridiculous, getting returns in every game, Arsenal clean sheets. But currently, if you only have one Arsenal defender, you're actually hoping for an Arsenal wipeout on the clean sheet front because it's harming your rank. And it was just a good points tally overall. Mo Salah up front, picking up a 16-pointer as well. But my team going into Game Week 11, as you can see on the screen, we've got a few issues. Now, Henderson has Brighton, Gabriel Sunderland away, Munoz has Brighton at home, Malik Chow, Brentford away, Nico Williams Leeds at home, so a pretty decent fixture for him. Anthony Gordon, Brentford away. The 2 Palace boys in midfield with Kamada and Sarr both at home to Brighton, Saka away to Sunderland, and then up front we've got the 2 strikers playing against each other with Mo Salah away to Man City and Erling Haaland currently at home to Liverpool. Now, when you look at this team, it's okay. It's scored well. And currently, I am ranked 632nd in the world. So it's been a very good start to the season. And that is without using any of the big boosters. I've used, I think, 2 or 3 substitution chips. So I think it's actually 2 maybe instead of 3. No goal bonus, no 12th man, no max captaincy so far. So to be this high up in the rankings without using any chips, any of the major chips that is, I'm very happy with my start. Now, going into a single game week, I don't want to lose too much ground. before the international break because it makes those 2 weeks extremely long to look at your squad. Now, when we look across the back line, it's looking very decently. Newcastle seemingly picking up clean sheets in the cup competitions. Their form in the Premier League, not too great. We've got a double Palace defence. Didn't do too well last night, but with Brighton at home, no need to change it. Gabriel away to Sunderland, I think he is the highest scoring defender in the game, if not definitely in the top three. And Nico Williams at home to Leeds, a promoted side. Massive fixture you saw with Forest team selection last night in the Europa League. Rested lots of key players. Murillo didn't start, Anderson didn't start. And I think Sells also missing out on the clean sheet as well. So for those of you who did own him, would have been very frustrating to see. So Williams is definitely going to stay in my team. Moving on to the two attackers, Salah away to City, Haaland at home to Liverpool. Not going to touch them two. I think with the way that Liverpool have defended across the majority of this season, there could potentially be goals in this one for Haaland. Only one team I think has stopped him. Sorry, two teams have stopped him in the Premier League, and that was Tottenham and Aston Villa. He even scored against the Arsenal defence, so it just goes to show that in any given fixture, Haaland has the potential to score. And Salah, I'm going to want him for the fixtures after the international break, so there's no point transferring him out. To transfer him back in, and he could get something out of this one as well. So we look at the midfield for my team. Kamada, Saka, Sarr, and Anthony Gordon. I think Saka will stay. He's going to be on penalties with Victor Gyökeres not in the squad, we think. And then you move to the other three. They've got something wrong with them, basically. Kamada didn't start last night. According to Glasner, it was his turn for a rest. But what does that mean going forward? Points wise, he has relied heavily upon tackles recently. Now he's ticked over English. He's ticked over okay since about game week 6, but maybe this is the week to shift him on. So got to wait for that Oliver Glasner press conference. If that niggle is slightly more than he's letting on, I've got to move him on, even though he might be going up 0.3 in value, because they'll stick him on the bench. I very much doubt he'll miss out on the squad altogether. If that was the case and he is ruled out completely, I might leave him in the squad, take the 0.2, 0.3 rise in price, and then use the substitution chip on him to shift him out. But we'll never know unless he tells us outright. And to be fair to Glasner, he is quite upfront about those things. And then moving on to Anthony Gordon. I feel like he and his injury just need to go. Many of us who've seen him in our teams over the recent weeks, we've relied heavily upon those European fixtures to bring in the points. I had my fingers crossed for this one, and it just wasn't meant to be. He's finally given up injury-wise, and they've got Harvey Barnes to play out there. They've got Jacob Murphy on the other side, and you've also got Alanga who could potentially play on either side as well. There's absolutely no reason to rush Gordon back for this one, especially with the international break. They can give him 2-3 weeks off and then get him back fit and firing. So to me, it could be any one of those midfield three. I'm not necessarily going to be playing both transfers this week. I think single game weeks offer a very good potential to carry a transfer forward, and that might be the case. If not, I'm probably going to go for one European player and one potential punt for the week. As to who that is yet, I'm not too sure. Of course, across the midfield, we've got lots of options. Maybe looking at a Chelsea player. João Pedro has come into my attention. Did well in the Premier League. Picked up a 15-pointer, I think it was, away to Tottenham. Got the goal. Should have got way more points than that. 5 shots on target in that one. And prior to the Champions League game in the week, he was going to be one of my transfers in. But that stopped his price rise. He once again went back to how he had been in the previous game weeks, where he didn't have a shot. He was playing extremely deep in that Chelsea lineup. Has that put me off slightly? Maybe. You've got Caicedo and Enzo, two stalwarts in most people's midfield, and they've done really well for points. Maybe it's a potential week to bring them in. I wanted to bring Caicedo in several weeks back. He picked up a slight knock and didn't actually start that fixture, so I was thankful I didn't bring him in at the time. But maybe a Chelsea defender instead. Of course, they are playing Wolves at home this game week. But there's so much rotation with Chelsea, and we had this problem last year where Maresca, it was in the Conference League and not necessarily the Champions League, but we didn't even touch their players. That Conference League tournament was basically a no-go for all Sun Dream Team assets. Maybe it's a situation where I go farther at the back, someone like a Trevor Chalobah or a Malo Gusto that have been hyping up quite substantially, or a Reece James who's picking up points across the board as well. So for them, might be a case of picking them up. And the other players that I've actually looked at are Nottingham Forest assets. I've been quite big on Igor Jesus this week. Leeds at home, Leeds defensively, not too great. Might be one of them ones where we're targeting teams towards the bottom of the league. Leeds, not necessarily Sunderland, because of course they did get promoted, but they're nowhere near the bottom of the league. You've got Leeds, you've got Burnley, you've got Wolves, you've got West Ham, and you've got Burnley, all teams towards the bottom of the table. Of course, Nottingham Forest are one of them, but under Sean Dyche, I can see their defence tightening up slightly. So maybe another Nottingham Forest defender, maybe Elliot Anderson comes back into the team. It's still yet to be decided. If anything, I'm potentially leaning toward the 2 transfers, but that's 55-45 percentage wise. And I think the only just full on thing that's probably going to happen in my team, Anthony Gordon, for his price and his probable lack of availability, he's got to go. That does indeed conclude my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 11 deadline. Not looking forward to the international break at all. Once again, we've just got up and running with this fantasy season, and we're going to have to watch some pointless internationals for 2 weeks, and then it's all systems go. We go into the festive period, lots of rotation, lots of double game weeks. The first Premier League double game week as well to come up very shortly after the international break, so we've got to keep an eye on our teams. And it may be the start of booster season as well. As always, leave a comment down below on how your week went in Game Week 10 and what your transfer plans are ahead of Game Week 11. Maybe there's a few dilemmas down there that I might be able to help you out with. Maybe there's a few things that you lot might be able to help me out with as well going forward. Down in the description below on my socials, as always. We've got X, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok. Go check them out. All good stuff over there. Closing in on 500 followers on X, so if you could, be greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 1,500 subscribers. Hit the thumbs up button as well. 100 is always a target on all Sun Dream Team videos. Pushes it out to all the relevant viewers, and it does help the channel out massively. So thank you very much for watching today's video, and you'll be seeing me in a new one very soon.